Welcome, everybody, at our next Business Agility Boost. It is already the third session of our Change Accelerator series. And I say good afternoon, but maybe you are in a totally different part of the world and are just starting your day, or maybe you are already heading into the weekend. So let us know in the chat where you are, who you are, where you come from. So we also know who is in this session. Okay. Last time, the first session we did was with, maybe you still know that if you are here for the third time, was with Priscilla Dunal from Philips. She's Global Transformation Lead. And there we kicked off with discussing the bigger picture in a transformation. After that, our second session, we dived into how to create a climate for change. And today, we will talk about how to make change stick. So to create a sustainable transformation. I see already some people coming in. Erik, hello. From Houten in the Netherlands, hello. And José also, welcome, welcome. Good afternoon. And this, of course, is not a session from me alone. This is also a session for you. So join the conversation, hand in your questions. Some already did last week, so I hope I could embed them in the entire presentation or in the entire speech. But if not, then don't hesitate to ask again. So then we can make the session as valuable as possible. Hi, Serena from Leidschendam. Someone else, I cannot see who you are, but from Amsterdam. Okay, so let's kick off. Yes. After this session, you know how to shift to continuous improvement, align from purpose to execution, and how to shape a stunning experience. Now, why is that important? We always say that transformation is a journey. And as you see it like this at the picture, then there is a beginning and an end. But we all know that that is not the case. So for the ones who were not here last time, let's do a short recap and then dive into the second part. So last time we spoke about lay the foundation for a climate for change. So we started with purpose, with communication, how to involve the people. We also talked about the difference between change and transformation. A transformation is really huge. It creates the future, impacts the entire human system. It has an impact on our beliefs and mindset, behavior, and it can be the outcome of many changes. So what you already see is that a transformation can exist of several changes to make it smaller. We explored the essence of driving from purpose, how to involve everyone, and who leads this change. We also dived into the change curve. And why do I explicitly come back to this? Because the change curve is a crucial part to understand how people respond to change, to transformation. And that is also not just a one-time event. Our emotions are always with us. And it's not just one curve, as you see in here at the picture, but we can always fall back into different emotions. So once we make a step forward and something happens, impacts our lives, maybe on personal level, can also be the case, or at work, then we can fall back again. So therefore, it's very important to understand how these processes work and what is going on in the minds of maybe yourself, of the employees in your organization, so that you can, so that you take time to really have the conversations with the people in your organization, what is going on and how can we help each other further. Then today we talk about sustained transformation, make change stick. And what I already said, it's not just a beginning and an end. And it looks like it this way, right? That we see, okay, now we have done everything. So we are ready also as a team. One of you mentioned, how can we take care of that we don't fall back or that we stop too soon with implementing, or that the project team, the transformation team stops early in the process, and that the people in the organization are not yet ready for that. And that's a really good one, because we always think that if we have done this journey, we learned the new ways of working, we trained the people, we started with a project, we did some experience, well, then people can continue on their own. But that's often not the case. And that has to do is also related with what we just said about the change curve. It's about behavior. And we organized our organizations in a way for over 100 years. And in the organizations, we have adapted a certain way of behavior, a certain way of culture. And in the new organizations, we expect a different way of behaving sometimes. And that's not easy to change. So that takes time, and that takes reinforcement, and again, being aware, creating awareness, and so on. What we also said last time, and where we dived into, is that we often focus on the more technical part of the change, the technical part of the transformation. Are the systems in place, and so on, the tools, and so on. But it's not only about the tangible parts. It's mostly about the people side of change, the intangible part. In the People Journey Circle, you find a method where you can pick and choose. It's kind of menu. Hey, what is necessary to help the people further? So every time, with everything you do, be aware of what are the needs of the people in the organization. They are always in the center. Not only the employees, leaders are also employees, but also the customers, other stakeholders in your organization, and maybe in the system. Is the purpose clear? So once you think we communicated the purpose, so now it should be clear. The moment you think that, start over communicating again. Because you cannot communicate enough. No one ever said stop communicating. If that is the case, then you did a good job. Is everyone still aligned? Do we still know? Oh yeah, what are our principles? What are our values? So also related to that, communicate, but not only communicate, do sessions, like what we said last time, create interactive sessions that you have the discussions together. If we talk about transparency, what does that really mean for me? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for someone in a different culture? Are there any blockers on the road? We will dive into that later on. How do we lead and act as a person, as an employee, as a leader? Do we role model the behaviors we want to see? Do we ask for feedback, or maybe better, feed forward to get suggestions and find new strategies, how to act on the new behaviors? Do we still show them? Make use of the collective intelligence. I cannot say that often enough, and I will also come back to that later in this session. Creating a learning organization. Is everyone able to learn and thrive? Learning, we often create new learning programs for the new way of working we want to see, but also creating different behaviors, a different mindset. Learning how that works is a crucial part of creating a learning organization. And what we also will come back to is creating feedback loops to learn from each other and to improve and not to reinvent the wheel over and over again. We are very good at that. And of course, are we aware of the system? If there is a change in a part of the organization, it always impacts another part. You're not just a siloed department. You can do changes in your department, of course, but always be aware of the impact you have on others in your business system, but also outside your business system, and vice versa. So to be adaptive to changing circumstances which come from the ecosystem. So the change journey is an iterative process. We always start with exploring. We design, for instance, if you decided that you have a cultural change and want to see different behaviors in your organization, what does that look like in your profiles? For instance, for employees, for leaders. And if you design them, empower the rest of the organization to help you with that. And then start scaling that new profile, that new behavior, because a profile is just a profile. But we want to see how we can behave accordingly. And if you then have that new profile and you understand what the expected behaviors are and how you want to show them, how do you integrate them in the employee journey for everyone in the organization, so that in all parts, in all touch points of the employee journey, it will come back from onboarding till the end. But what you just saw is still a beginning and an end, right? Now let's have a look at, I'm not diving into this model, but maybe you know it. It's the Laloux cultural model. But they described very well 5 certain cultures. The red culture is really about power organizations, which have a certain behavior. Then you see the yellow, the orange, the green, and the teal is totally the opposite. It's really about having an evolutionary purpose. It's not about self-management, but about self-organizing. So it goes really far beyond, I think, a lot of organizations have right now. And that's also okay, because maybe you do not aspire that also. But what I want to show you with this is that all these kind of cultures, so if you think we want to change something in our culture, in our organization, what is then the impact for people on the way we behave and how we collaborate together? If you are here, if this is your starting point and you are aiming for this, then there is a huge gap. It's a gap that you cannot easily bridge from one day to the other. And let me explain that with an example. For instance, some years ago, I did I led a transformation in a call center. And that call center really strived to become more self-organizing. We did some experiments, and those experiments went very well. But in these experiments, we took the time for learning, for the way we behaved, for the way we behaved to our customers. The time we took for our customers, we did not work anymore with KPIs like you need to take up the phone in 3 minutes or 3 seconds, sorry. You do not have to end the session or the call within 5 minutes. All that kind of KPIs, we throw them from the table. So the people who were part of that experiment were really able to learn and improve. And then after that experiment, and when we thought, okay, let's reflect on it and see what the learnings are, we took that in the journey for the big leap. the entire organization or the entire department, and it was a huge department, should go to the new organization, what we aspire to. And I can tell you that was a big leap, a bit like what you see in here. And no, we did not aim for a teal organization, but at least we aspired for more self-management, working from purpose, and so on. So it's more the green part of this model. However, what we did, and that was a big lesson, is that we started from where we wanted to go to. We did not start from our starting point where we were. The experiment learned us that there was a lot of learnings for the people, but we started after the experiment in one go with the entire department. And maybe you now can imagine what happened. Although the people really loved to go to the new organization, it was really difficult and hard to adapt the new behaviors. How does that work if there pops something up from the customer perspective, if there are changes, if there is a bunch of extra work? How do we handle that as a self-managing team if we have never done that before? When you are in a pilot and experimenting with that, you have all the time of the world to do so. But when there are customers calling, you need to take up the phone. So when do you start to change the way you behave, to change, to become more self-organizing? So we learned from that because we saw already, I think, in 2 months, because everyone went through an onboarding, of course, and we learned how it should work. But that doesn't mean that it works immediately that way. So after 2 months, we did a reflection session with the people in the department, and we created a backup team. A backup team that worked in the way as the entire department worked before. So that the people who should go and move to the new organization, adapting new behaviors, adapting new ways of working, were able to learn in their time and got the help from the leaders and from the transformation team to being able to close and to bridge the gap. And I think that is one of the most important things, that you reflect, that you not only reflect, but also adjust your process, your journey, based on what people need. So it's not just one change, but it's a continuous improvement. So after first the experimentation, you adjust and go to the next one. Not changing in a way that we do something totally different. No, we still aim for the higher purpose, for our aspiration, but we adjust the journey, and so on, until you come in a situation of continuous improvement. So experiment, learn, improve. Onboard everyone. Understand what their needs are. Give the time to learn. Isolate the pilot. Because what you also see, and what I mean with that is not that we need to start working in isolated, but when you drive a pilot and you want to be innovative and you want to try something out, then isolated pilots, so that they are able to experiment, that they are not forced to do something else because one of the leaders of another department asked that from you. No, give them the time and the place and the environment to experiment with what you are aiming for. That also means that you need to adjust the rules. Because otherwise, if they need to wait for a signature for 9 months, for example, then you cannot experiment. So why is it necessary to wait for such a long period? have the courage to adjust the rules for the pilot so that you can experiment and that you also know and understand what is necessary for the rest of the people in the department, in the teams, to really being able to onboard and to take on the journey to the new organization. And reflect. Reflection is the only way to learn. Not only reflection, then improve. And reflection is also celebrating. So we also celebrate what we did very well. And not only celebrate what we did very well, but also learn from that. Because that's also what we often forget. If we did something very well, or it worked out very well, how come that it was such a celebration? How come that it was so successful? Maybe we can also embed that for the rest of the teams and the departments. Share that together. Maybe I need to have a look in the chat if there are some questions already. Manoj, how can organizations effectively align strategies at all levels? Promote collaboration by breaking down silos, yes. Implement sustainable growth and create a consistent rhythm for aligning objectives. Yes, this is a great question, Manoj, and I will dive into this in a bit. So I'm not going to answer it now, but I will dive into that. Great question. And it's something a lot of organizations and departments struggle with, how to stay aligned. Because we have one company, right? And I always call that the agility paradox. And that's also why I cannot emphasize enough on experimenting, reflecting, adjusting, learning, embedding, and learning, and then see what is the next blocker on the road. Because your company is a system. And part of that system is maybe already heading into a new organization. Now, you see in this picture, it's really focused on agile. That's not what I mean. You do not have it. This is not about just an agile transformation. It can also be that you want to tweak something or you want to change your culture. Doesn't necessarily have to be agile, but this is a bit of an example to explain it better. But there are also teams in your system who have a different way of working. And that's totally fine. But then you need to, because the way of working, what works in one department and team, maybe does not work for another department. We also need to be aware of that. You do not have to work in the same way everywhere. I hear that a lot in organizations. Then they say, yeah, but we work with Scrum, so now we need to implement Scrum everywhere. Why? In operations, it doesn't make any sense to work with a Scrum methodology. But if you are starting to work with, for instance, in change, yeah, it can make sense. So it's not necessary to work everywhere at the same way. But you need to be aware that if you work in different ways in the entire system, that it can mean that one department needs a different process and a different planning than another department. Maybe you also need a different way of how we lead the organization. And another thing is, we cannot, it's not a big leap. That's almost impossible to change the entire organization at once. Yes, if you have an organization with 50 people, that's more easy. But if you are working in an organization with 50,000 people, you can imagine that's not possible. So you have to do that in iterations if you want to. And especially if you aim for a different way of behaving, different ways of mindset, different principles, adjusting of your values, and so on. So I call that the agility paradox. We start to change somewhere, and then we think we are almost there, and then something else pops up. And I think, Manoj, this aligns to your question, because how do we then stay aligned? How do we then come out of our silos? What we see in the latest research of the Business Agility Institute is that a lot of organizations who are already on their way to creating business agility find it still very difficult to act as one company. What we see is that now one of the top impediments is misalignment of goals. 48% stated that. Organizational politics, siloed way of working, excessive workload. Well, I think everyone experienced that, and we see that changes, work piles up, and we are not very well able to see, is it really possible to do everything now? And is it also necessary to do everything now, today, or this week? If you are able to prioritize, it doesn't mean that you have to do everything now. And it also doesn't mean that if you do something not today, that you do it never, but you prioritize according the resources you have, the amount of people, what you are aiming for. Is it really contributing to our purpose, what we are working on? And ineffective communication. Now, I would like to share an example of a company I helped in the transformation. And yes, then you see here a collective game changer, and maybe you already know what this is. It's called the Obeya. It's a big room, and that's what it calls in Japan. And it is a bit technical, but sometimes you need a technical tool to being able to change the way you behave, you collaborate, to break the silos, to communicate better together, to align your goals, and so on. So during a transformation, I worked with an executive team, and we had a session about alignment of strategy. What are the topics that are important? They were at the beginning of their transformation, and they wanted to visualize everything they were working on, because what they also said, we do not really know if we are working on the right things. Well, that's a real question, what also Manoj already put in the chat. And during one of those sessions, one of the executives said, Alize, why is it so frustrating that we are not able to understand when we are successful? We can define every strategy we want. And they had already a great purpose. They were part of a global organization. They had everything in place related to the values, the principles, the mission, the vision, and the great purpose. However, they also defined a strategy. But now how to bring it further? And they got a bit frustrated, and they looked at me, and I said, yeah, okay, I can give you some answers, but I think you know. And then one of the executives said, and she put really the elephant on the table, and she said, well, I think we are not able to define what success looks like and what we should prioritize, because we do not have enough information. We do not have enough information from our employees. We do not have enough information of our customers. What are their needs? Yes, we know a bit, but it's a gut feeling. And then they said, okay, how can we now continue? And after a short break, we came back into the room, and they said, okay, let's ask the people in our organization. And we set up a meetup, and invited all the people in their organization. There were around 300 people. And the entire team stood in front of the employees. And they shared their story. They did not ask immediately for help, but they shared their story, their struggles, what they were working on. They also shared that they were not able to define the real success of the transformation. And they explained their personal struggle, so really their personal journey. And then at the end, one of the executive directors said, and we know that we do not have enough information. And we also know that we don't want to do this on our own. You are the most important people in our organization, and without you, we are nothing. So we like to invite you in what we already have created in our Obeya, and we like to work together on this. The question is, what do you want? Well, at the beginning, it was silent. And then some of the engineers raised their hand and they said, I have some ideas, which we are already working on with our team, but it doesn't come any further because, we are not really aligned also with marketing and other departments, and also with you, with the leadership team. So there it started. And they started to work and using visual management, not entirely visualize the entire, all the projects at once, but they started with defining 6 projects which aligned with the transformation and with the strategy. Because, yes, they had a great overview of what they value, what the mindset should be in the organization, what their principles are. But they said, but we want to create agility in our organization. But what does that really mean for us as an organization? Remember what I said in the former session about principles, agile principles. The Obeya also has principles. And to understand, to work with that, you need to understand what those principles are and how they align with the principles you already have in your organization. So we started to do design sessions, and people signed up for those design sessions and really explored what it is, what it should look like, and how to continue with that. They also set up a rhythm. So the teams worked on the how, they explored, they did research, they collected data, they went to other organizations to see what they were doing and how it worked there, not to take it over and to copy, but to find out, hey, how it works there, what can we learn from it? And how can we then maybe adjust our approach? During these design sessions, we also organized demo sessions in the Obeya, so everyone could join and listen what was going on. So also the people who were not able to join the design sessions, they were ahead of the information. So they knew, hey, what is going on? And maybe I can give some feedback, etc. So during the demos, everyone could give feedback, and the leadership team was also there to ask supporting questions and also to challenge sometimes to say, hey, what are the blockers? What are you facing? How can we help you? That was also a change for the leadership team because they were very used to be part of the operation and to be in the project and in the game in that way. But now they were more at the sidelines supporting that the teams could do their work. So they really need to sit on their hands. And that was also what they sometimes said. I really need to sit on my hands because I know sometimes that they are struggling, but I don't want to interfere. So that's also a give and take from the leadership team, from the leaders in the organization. What do you do? How can you help? And what don't you do? sometimes it's also good to step back and to leave it to the team to see how they can find their new solutions. And after that, the first design sessions, where 80% of the people were part of, so 80% of the employees took part of at least one of the design sessions, and all of the people were part of the entire journey. And we started also to reflect on, okay, and what do the people then now need? After half a year, we saw the first results. And people said, wow, we are far more aligned. We have focus. We are faster in problem solving and decision making, because that was also part of this journey, of these experiments. Now I know how I can contribute with my work. And what I also find a very interesting one is I don't have to defend my work and role anymore. And that's something to think of and very important to realize, because there are people in the organization, and maybe also in your organization, maybe you feel it yourself, that you sometimes have to defend what you are working on. That should not be the case, because the work you are doing should contribute and be top of mind in the organization, because it's contributing to the strategy and to, in the end, the purpose of your organization. If that is not the case, why are we working on the project? If it's not top of mind for the leadership team, for instance. I hear that a lot from departments. It is the people in departments, for instance, also in HR. Yeah, we are working on this topic, but it's really not on top of mind with the leaders in the organization, in the business. And then that's a huge problem, because people do not feel that they deliver value, and the project can be very valuable. You also see this when there is a new strategy introduced, and when we start from the end. If you work, for instance, on a project that is not finished yet, or maybe if you, for instance, work on a mobility program in your organization, and this will start to change with the new strategy, then you need to adjust the project you are working on now. But sometimes it needs to stop immediately. But if not, then it takes time. If there are people involved in this project and who you are helping and supporting, then you cannot stop it at once. That needs to take time. So this was for me also really an eye-opener when I heard this. I don't have to defend my work and role anymore. And from the leadership team, as an enabling team, we now have time to zoom out and explore new ideas to innovate. And that's also what happens. If you as a leader or manager are always in the operation, working on ad hoc projects, things that are popping up, how often do you take the time to zoom out, to align and refresh with your strategy and your purpose? Now, what are we talking about? Because it's a bit of, this is a great story and it really helped and it's a powerful tool, but it's still a tool which you need to adapt in your entire strategy and way of working. So always keep in mind what I say. It's also a different way of behaving and collaborating. But in this Obeya, you have one room. Can be physical, can be digital, can be hybrid. It exists of, I always say, 4 walls, and it is a mirror of your organization. It's a small room where you have an overview from purpose to strategy to execution, where you find the data, the performance wall, and where you find an improvement wall. And I will elaborate on this later. What is mostly the same during a certain period of time, a longer period of time, is of course always the purpose, because the purpose doesn't change every year or every month. It's for a long, it's the why of your organization, why you exist. What is the value you want to deliver as an organization to your customers, to your employees? The mission, the vision, the values, your principles, so that they are always clear and visualized in this room. For everyone, it's open. For everyone, it's visible. You can write it, but you can also craft beautiful pictures. I've seen the most wonderful obeas, but that's not always necessary. But it's about visualization, because we learn also with our eyes, looking at things. Then, based on the first part, purpose, mission, vision, values, etc., you create your strategic objectives. These are also for a longer period of time, right? And you define what the outcomes should be. When is it successful? Once you have visualized that, it's clear for everyone. So the why and the what. And this is also a part which is, yes, you can create it together with the employees, but this is also something of the leaders to give direction for the managers. Be clear on the why and the what. So, what does customer satisfaction look like? It's about product and service quality. It can be related to information, communication, technology. Here you find in the strategy, you find, for instance, the overview and the connection between certain transformations there are in your organization. A transformation towards a new way of working, a transformation towards a new technology, and so on, cultural transformation. But also growth, profit, and cost, because we also need to earn money, right? Otherwise, we do not thrive. The impact you want to have on the social environment. And if you really want to make an impact, it should be part of your strategy. Otherwise, we forget what impact we want to make on our environment, on the planet, for instance. The sustainability goals, these are also part of the strategy. And it's just a small word, people, but it's the most important one. How are people involved in your strategy? Everything you write down in your strategy, what is the impact for the people? Here you lay the connection with the people in your organization. And of course, also the delivery and the operations. We sometimes focus very much on change and transformation, but we have also a business to run. So that's also part of the strategic objectives. Then, once we have that, we go to the next wall. That's the deliver value wall. Here is where everything happens, where we set our goals, our objectives, our initiatives. Because the strategic objectives, they have a timeline for, mostly 3 years. But we, as human beings, cannot work with something that we need to achieve in 3 years. That's too far away. And if it's too far away, we start to work on ad hoc projects, work, tasks, ending up nowhere. What's the value of that? So after that big strategy, we slice them down to 1 year. And then together with the teams, we decide, okay, how can we then contribute for the next half year? When are we successful then? What do we need to do? Do we want to increase engagement? Do we want to increase customer satisfaction? What are our goals? And how are we then going to do that? This is about how. The how we want to change, the how we want to run our business. This is also a place where we can adapt and adjust easily. But we first create an overview, and all the teams in your organization, or all the departments, depending on how big your organization is, have the overview here. So you also see what the alignment is between the several departments and the several teams. Later on, I come back to the rhythm, but if you have a clear rhythm in place, like the organization created from the example I gave you, they had every week a session around this wall. Every week, a marketplace where they discussed, hey, what is going on? Are there new things popping up? What are we going to do with them? Do we need to act now, or can we do that later? Maybe for next planning, and then we put it on the backlog? Or does it need action today? And if so, is it then possible to do so? Or do we need to stop something of the same size? So you prioritize every week, you come together. And if you have a more operational organization, you maybe need to do that 2 or 3 times a day in a shorter session. This rhythm, and that's very important, is not on top of other rhythms. It is the rhythm. And every rhythm has a purpose. So every time you think of, okay, who needs to be there? What is the purpose of the session? How to prepare, because you need to be prepared. It's very disciplined. If you're not prepared, not sure if we're going to discuss it. So that other people also can prepare what you want to bring in. And that other people can have a look at the day before, for instance, or 2 days before, can have a look at the topics you bring to the table, so that they know what value they can bring to your topic and vice versa. If there are questions about this, please raise your hand or put it in the chat. Then I can emphasize on it. Not sure if there is something. No? Okay. So this is about how. Implement the strategy, the change, the transformation. Break down the silos. It's not about breaking down your department, but it's about aligning the objectives. Communicate what you are doing. Have the communication together. Align with each other around what you are doing with your team, what another team is doing. How can you help each other? Maybe you need to be part of that. For instance, if you have a staff organization, a staff department, like legal, risk, you are not always necessary in every part of the journey of that objective, of that project. But you are necessary. So at the beginning in the planning, that you have to align when are you necessary. And if you do that up front, then you stay ahead. So then your project will not be delayed because you have to discuss something with someone from risk or from legal. Continuous rhythm, I already talked about that. Monitor dependencies and remove constraints collectively. Let other people help you to remove the constraints. Other people can give brilliant new insights where you get stuck because you are in your bubble. We all are. I am, you are, everyone is. We live in our bubbles and we have a certain way of working, behaving, how we did that before. But someone else can challenge you on that and can ask the right questions. Why are you doing this? And have you thought of maybe a different kind of strategy? Good to experiment with that. The fourth wall, a very important wall, measure performance. What do we measure? Do you work with KPIs? Do you work with OKRs? Do you work with other kind of data? This is where the data is visible. This is also where you challenge, what data do we need? What does the data tell us? It's one of the walls that is very important for us as people, because our brain likes to act immediately on our emotions, on our gut feeling. But this, if you have the information, the right data in this wall, then you can have a look at, okay, but what does the data tell us? How does the customer experience what we are doing? And if that experience is not so well, what can we do about it? And who do we need to change that, to work on it? It's also at the beginning, often it's very difficult to set this up because most organizations have a lot of data. But some organizations have so much data that they do not even look at it again. And that's a good question, Erik. What are the key success factors when using data in an Obeya? Well, one of the key successes is that we sometimes think that we work on the right things, but we forget to check what the data is telling us. For instance, our customers, from the experience, the example I gave you, we invited the customers in the room because we thought that we were doing a good thing for our customers, but we were not really sure. And we sometimes worked on our emotions, on how we always did it before, right? And then we got, because data is not always quantitative data. Qualitative data is even more important to really understand how to step in the shoes of the customer, how to step in the shoes of the employees. To really invite them, you get qualitative data. And this data you can bring in this wall and then tweak your journey. So if you have a look at what is then a success factor using data in this Obeya, you adjust your journey based on what the customers need, the value you want to deliver. I hope that it's clear. If not, then let me know. So are we on track? What data do we need and why? Metrics are never the goal. So it's not, we have this data, so we put it in the performance wall and we track those. No. The metrics which we have and which we show need to help you to track your journey. When are you successful in your journey? To test hypothesis. That's where the entire Obeya is for. Do we work with KPIs, OKRs, or what do we work with? What do we have? If we don't have the right data, how can we get the data? If we need other data, then that's also a project in your deliver value wall. And have a look at quality. Continuous improvement. I think this is underestimated, and it really helps to prioritize. We are often working on quick fixes and see that something is getting out of track, and then we try to put a plaster on the wound for a quick, easy fix. But what we could better do is to bring that topic. If you see, for instance, that the metrics of your customer experience or employee journey, employee experience is dropping down for several months, then bring it into the improvement wall. And first dive into the root cause. How come? Identify the constraints. Who do we need to identify this? And you can imagine that it's almost never the case, and especially if you are working in a huge organization, it's almost never the case that you only have one improvement. No, there are lots of improvements. But if I slice it down to, for instance, change and transformation, in change, in transformation, if you work with experiments and you want to start in a certain with a certain team, then you bring the learnings into this continuous improvement wall. So you have that experiment here mentioned in the wall, and you dive into, hey, what did we learn? What did we celebrate? But also, what do we need to improve? And from here, you start the cycle of improvement, and then you bring in the adjustments into the new project on your deliver value wall. Maybe it's a bit technical, but yeah, it needs too much time to dive really into this. I can elaborate on this if you want to know more. So then send me a DM. Happy to share a bit more with you, but that's too much for now, and it's almost 1 o'clock. But happy to share more about this. So identify constraints. Who benefits from the constraint? If you will solve it, what is the real problem? Who do we need to solve it? Where does the information come from? When is the right time to act? Now, next month, in a quarter, in a year? Don't know. Why should we care? How to apply, act or not? Decide, because if everything is urgent, once an agile coach told me if everything is urgent, then nothing is urgent. Ceremonies, this is just an example. On yearly basic, you work on your strategy, redefine the strategy. You don't have to create everything every year new. No, redefine, adjust, zoom out. Is it still the strategy which fits to our purpose, which fits to the things we experience from the ecosystem? Do we need to adjust something? And then you start your cycle, slice it down from a year to a quarter, every quarter, refine. What are we doing? Is it still the right way? Celebrate, reflect, and then prepare for the new quarter, for instance. And last but not least, activate the collective intelligence. If you want to sustain transformation, then we know we fall back. We will, always. That's a given. It's difficult to keep everything going, to keep your behavior, what you want, your aspirations going, because there can be a push from somewhere. And if we experience that pushing, then we fall back in the way we always worked, because that's easier for us. It's how we are used to do things, what our brain likes the most. It's easy because everything we did along the way, if you are, for instance, 50 years old, then you have all kinds of experiences from the past. And we always go back to those experiences, to how we did things, because we think that's easy. And that's also why we will fall back. And we see certain stages in transformations. If it's a huge transformation, after 2 years, you see a fallback. After 5-6 years, you see a fallback. Sometimes it's not really a fallback, but it's an improvement. And that's perfectly fine, because you want to change from transformation, change to continuous improvement, right? So there will always be an improvement. I see a question popping up. Interesting to assess who is benefiting from a constraint. It's easy to assume everyone wants to remove them once they can see them. Yeah, absolutely. And it's sometimes we easily forget, because we work from our assumptions, and therefore it's good, and also where then the Obeya and visualization helps, and really powerful, to not dive into these assumptions, but ask other people who will benefit if we start to work on it. For who are we doing this? What is the value? So activating the collective intelligence, build communities. So what do I mean with that? And this is really helpful if you are a bit of a larger organization, but also in a larger organization, because then it's more difficult. If you have experiences, for instance, you work in the Netherlands, you work, another part of your company is in Germany or in Italy or in Spain or in the other side of the world, and you want to create, you work from the same values and principles as a global company. That means something different in all parts of the world, of course, but you want to act on that. Also, the ways of working, you want to bring it further. But if you have experiences in Germany with a certain way of working, and your colleagues in Spain also want to work in that way, then exchange with each other. Start shadowing. Invite people from Germany to Spain, Spain to Germany. Start to collaborate and learn from each other. Share that in your community so that you start to share your knowledge and experiences, to not reinvent the wheel. Here also the Obeya helps a lot because it's visible what you are doing in the entire organization. Peer learning, shadowing, mentoring. This really helps to activate the collective intelligence. And we mostly ask people, our direct peers, when we have a kind of problem or an issue, start asking people from totally different departments. Start asking people, if you are working in a staff environment, start asking people from operations and vice versa. So that you are linked and that you understand that there are other ways of solving your problem. Be the orchestrator. If the orchestra is your business system, then make sure the path is cleared, that you remove the obstacles. If there come new obstacles, help remove them. So everyone is able to unite and deliver a harmonious masterpiece. Remember, be clear on the why and the what. Continuously communicate, 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 communicate. Communication never stops. Experiment, learn, improve. Create a company rhythm which helps you to align and to step out of the silos, and build communities. Before I go to the closure, let's check if I maybe forgot a question to answer. Not sure. Being aware of possible fallback already helps. When in transformation, there will be a phase called liminal space, the space of not knowing. Exactly, Erik. That's exactly what it is. It's the unknown world. Liminality. It's a liminal space. I really love that. Thank you for adding that, because that's the phase of the unknown, and that's also a bit scary. But we also know that we are in there together. So if we can help each other, I think we can also find different ways to go into that space with a bit more confidence and feeling a bit more comfortable, supporting each other. So I think that's a real great addition. Thank you for that. Then I come to an end now of this session. If you want to know more, because we now finished the Change Accelerator series online, but the 22nd of November, we organize a seminar, a one-day seminar in Amsterdam, the Change Accelerator, where we help you to change your projects into successful and irresistible experiences, to change from doing projects to leaving a stunning legacy. A legacy where our future generation is proud of. It is about looking at your organization, at your project, about the way of working with a different lens. Join us. It's an entire day. We have also incredible guest speakers. I can already tell a bit. We have a transformation leader from Philips, from Roche and from the Obeya Association. So this promised to be a great event, and I'm looking forward to see you there. If you have other questions, find us via LinkedIn in the chat, DM me. I answer your questions always. Yeah, thank you for being here today. I want to say goodbye. And to our next session, we will do a LinkedIn Live in 2 weeks again. So if you have certain topics where you think this can really add value, or if you think the topics we discussed in the last 3 series, and there is one you really want to emphasize on, then also bring it on and let me know. I wish you a great day, a good weekend, and till next time. Bye.